What is up, everyone? iLyas is here. Welcome back to, welcome me back after nearly a year of forced retirement due to some private stuff that needs to stay private. Anyway, if you're new here, you picked an interesting episode to start with, because today we're diving into another brutally honest review, and this one is going to hurt. So as you know, I offer my services as a fractional CTO, and I get to talk to a lot of people and a lot of organizations who want to build a solution or who want to improve on an existing solution. And one of the ideas I got recently is by someone who wanted to build something called an app graveyard reviver. So basically, an app that's supposed to guide you and tell you exactly how to take your old, abandoned side projects and magically turn them into sellable assets. And I was very honest with the guy because my first thought was, oh no, brother, no. And I'll tell you why in a bit. Just a bit of disclaimer that I'm sharing this with his full consent, so this is not making fun of someone's idea. This is actually dissecting an idea and sharing learnings to help you all avoid some mistakes along the way. And with that, let's dig in. My name is iLyas, and I'm a senior solutions architect. Let's do this. Okay, so here's the thing. We've all been there, right? It's like 2 a.m. in the morning, you're procrastinating, you're just scrolling through your GitHub, as one does at 2 a.m. And so you just decide to clean your GitHub. You have these tons of half-finished projects, and suddenly you're like, man, if I could only figure out how to bring these back to life, I would be rich. This is the same energy as looking through old lottery tickets and thinking, maybe I missed a winner. It doesn't make sense when you look at it this way, right? Because what nobody wants to admit, literally nobody, usually if a project is dead, it's for good reasons. So let me share with you my opinion on why most side projects really end up abandoned. First off, it's very simple. Nobody wanted what you built. I know that stinks, but your app for rating different types of coffee shop Wi-Fi network wasn't exactly solving a burning problem for millions of people. Second, you probably got bored. I mean, let's just be honest for a bit here. We all know the pattern. You're super excited for 3 weeks. You code until your eyes bleed, until 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And then you realize you actually have to do marketing. You have to do customer support. You have, God forbid, have to talk to real human beings, right? Who might not love your baby as much as you do. And suddenly, binge watching Netflix seems way more appealing. Okay, number third of why a lot of side projects end up in the graveyard is you probably hit a wall you can climb. Maybe you're a backend wizard, but the moment someone mentions growth hacking, conversion funnels, you were like, nope, I'm out. I'm not interested in learning this new thing. And finally, and this is my personal favorite, the shiny object syndrome. You abandoned project A because project B looks cooler, and then you ditched project B for project C. And now you've got 17 half-finished apps that you're convinced they are secretly valuable. Spoiler alert, they're not. So our entrepreneur friend here thinks that the solution is an app that tells people how to revive these projects. And this approach always drives me crazy. I'll tell you why. Because it's based on a huge misconception. People do not fail because they don't know how to do things. Everyone knows how to lose weight, eat less, move more, caloric deficit. Everyone knows how to learn a skill, practice every day. Everyone knows how to build a business, find customers, solve their problem, make money. The information is everywhere. It's free. You can Google how to market my app right now, and you'll get 10,000 results. The problem is not knowledge. It hasn't been knowledge for years now. The problem is actually doing the work. And no app is gonna magically give you the discipline to grind through the boring, hard parts of building a real business. And I wanna also talk about this sellable assets, turning your idea into sellable assets. I want to talk about it for a second here. You know what makes something sellable? Users who actually pay money, a revenue that's growing, clean code that doesn't break every 5 minutes, documentation that makes a ton of sense, customer support that work, legal stuff that's not a nightmare. And the most abandoned projects are the exact opposite of that. They're technical debt bombs, just waiting to explode. They're built on frameworks that were deprecated like 2-3 years ago. The code looks like it was written by, I don't know, drunk octopus or something. There's zero documentation because, don't worry, I remember how it works. And turning that into something someone would actually buy, that's not revival. That's complete reconstruction. You might as well just start over. All right, next point. We need to get real about the target market here. Who exactly is gonna pay for this app? Weekend warriors, who code for fun? I don't think so, because most of them are not trying to build businesses. They just like making cool stuff. Okay, how about experienced founders? Well, they already know the game. If they wanted to revive an old project, they wouldn't need an app to walk them through it. How about people with one failed startup who think there's a hidden gold in their code? Well, here's the thing. If you could not make it work when you were motivated and you were excited about it, what makes you think you can make it work now when it's just another chore on your list? And that's exactly what it is. So the biggest issue people have with dead projects aren't about lacking information. They're actually way deeper than that. There's, for example, the sunk cost thing, the sunk cost fallacy. I spent 6 months on this. It has to be worth something. No, it doesn't. There's actually denial. This is a terrible idea, but I just cannot admit it to myself. There's the skill gap problem. I can build it, but I have no clue how to sell it. And there is reality. I work full-time, I have kids, and maybe 3 hours a week for side projects. So an app that's like, step 1, identify your target market, isn't gonna solve any of these actual problems. So I was just having a conversation with our friend here, and I told him about this thing that bugs me that I see in about 95% of ideas I go through. They sound like someone fell in love with their solution before they proved there was actually a problem worth solving. They were probably thinking, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was an app that's ... Instead of, I have talked to 50 people with abandoned projects and they all told me ... So what about you? If you're serious about this, here's your homework. Go find 100 people with dead side projects. Ask them why they stopped. Ask them if they want to revive them. Ask them what's really blocking them. Ask them if they are actually willing to pay for help. Someone can tell you, yes, I want this, but are they willing to tell you, yes, I want this with their wallet? And I bet you'll find out that most people either don't want to resurrect their old projects or they just need way more help than any app can actually provide. So what might actually work instead? And look, I'm not trying to be a complete ass here. I'm not trying to be a complete dream crusher. If you really want to help people with abandoned projects, there might be better ways to do it. That was my whole take about this. Maybe offer a service where you personally audit someone's dead projects and give them brutally honest feedback about whether it's worth saving. That's high touch. That's high value. That's not something that everyone can do. Or maybe build a community where developers can get real feedback on their dormant projects from people who've actually shipped stuff, right? A community for builders, for shippers. Or maybe create a course that teaches the specific skills most developers are missing, like marketing, like sales, user research, the stuff they don't teach you in coding bootcamps. But an app that spits out generic advice, that's just gonna end up in the same graveyard with everything else. And I know AI makes building applications easier now more than ever. Does not mean we should just jump headfirst and build everything that goes through our minds. All right, let's wrap this up. The app graveyard reviver sounds romantic, but it's built on some pretty shaky assumptions. It assumes that people want to revive their old projects. It assumes that lack of information is what's stopping them. And it assumes that an app can solve complex psychological and behavioral and practical problems. And the reality check is that most projects die for good reasons. And the ones that are actually worth saving, their creators usually don't need an app to tell them how to save them. So if you're listening to this and thinking about your own project's graveyard, here's my advice. Be brutally honest about why you stopped working on stuff. If it was genuinely a good idea and you just hit a temporary roadblock, maybe it is worth another shot. But if it was a solution looking for a problem, or if you've just moved on to bigger things, probably just let it rest in peace. Because every successful person has a trail of failed projects behind them. The secret is not bringing the dead ones back to life. The secret is learning from them and building something better. That's it for this episode of Brutally Honest. If this saved you from wasting months on a doomed idea, please hit that like button. And if you got an idea that you want me to roast, okay, no, not roast. If you got an idea that you want me to honestly evaluate, please drop it in the comments. Catch you next time. And remember, not every idea deserves to live. As G-Eazy says, sometimes it's a bit worth the bullshit. Sometimes you should just let it flush. And yes, I'm quoting G-Eazy now. Peace out.